Hey there, storytellers! Welcome back to my channel. Today's video, as you can tell, is going to be my March wrap-up. March was not my strongest month for reading. I had a lot going on and I kind of just got stressed and out of the mindset of actually doing the reading. I wanted to read, but I just wasn't very good about it. But anyway, I digress. Let's just, without any further ado, get into the books I did manage to finish. So the first book I finished in March, I mentioned at the end of my February wrap-up because I was almost done with it, and I did finish it on March 1st, so I really didn't take any time in March to finish it at all, and that is City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Mortal Instruments series, and it follows Clare and Simon and Jace and Alec and Isabel as they continue to try to hunt down Valentine. He's got the Mortal Cup. They believe he has at least another one of the Mortal Instruments, I think, already, and they're trying to get them back from him. But basically, they chase him down to this boat, and a big showdown happens, and we immediately sort of roll over into the next book that I finished in March, City of Glass, also by Cassandra Clare. At the end of City of Ashes, Clary gets a tip from an old friend of her mother's that she needs to go to Idris, the Shadowhunter homeland, to find Ragnar Fell, and he can help break the spell over her mother. Through some mishaps or others, basically the whole gang ends up in Idris, and things get wild. They are staying with a family that isn't what it seems. Let's just say that. I don't want to give too much away in case you haven't actually read these yet. I know they've been out for a very long time, so is it really a spoiler? I don't know. But there are people out there who maybe haven't read them yet, so I will avoid them. But this one does get crazy, and in the end, they come to a moment of resolution that sort of wraps up the first three books to an extent, but I know we have three more in the series that continues, but they almost seem kind of like they're going to be little mini trilogies within the 6-book series. I ended up giving both City of Ashes and City of Glass 5 stars. I'm very much enjoying the Shadowhunter world, but I am going to take a pause on City of Fallen Angels. I started it, and I'm not hating it or anything, I'm just not vibing with it either, so I'm going to take a break and chase some other reading vibes, but for now, I have finished the first 3 in the Mortal Instruments, and I did very much enjoy them. The next book that I finished in March is Black Buck by Mateo Askaripour. I don't know how to pronounce his name, I'm very sorry. But this follows Darren, aka Buck, who is a 22-year-old working at Starbucks in New York City. He lives in Bed-Stuy with his mother and his girlfriend, and he's pretty happy with where he's at in his life. He's not too driven to sort of great career goals, even though everyone thinks he should be because he was the valedictorian of a very prestigious school. That is until one day when Darren convinces a regular that he sees come into Starbucks every day to change up his drink. Basically, he sells him a new drink. And this guy is so impressed by his sales skills, he basically offers him a job on the spot. And eventually, Darren takes him up on it, and the hazing and training process is insane. It's kind of crazy, and it gets crazier from there. Darren ends up being kind of a protege of the co-owner, who's the guy that hired him, and he does really well in some respects, and in other respects, there's another guy in the company, the former protege of the co-owner, and he hates Darren entirely. He tries to sabotage him at every turn, so they have that clash going on. There's a whole level of racist versus not racist undertones and actions that these characters go through, and as the story progresses, Darren sort of sells himself more and more to this company that he's working for and sort of loses himself within it, to the point that he ends up destroying his relationship with his girlfriend, his best friend, his mother, other people who have been in his life since he was a young little boy. He ruins all of his relationships, and eventually something kind of snaps him out of it, but it's too late. He's ruined a lot of those relationships. He can't fix a lot of those relationships. And in the end, he kind of gets his own comeuppance. But he's also more redeemed by the end of it. It's a weird one. To be fair, after I had started this, I listened to it on audiobook. I came across some reviews on Goodreads that were kind of knocking the story, but I also learned that it's maybe supposed to be a satire, and in that regard, I think it's very successful. A lot of people were knocking it for being too unrealistic, even for a satire, but come on, Jonathan Swift is a satirist, and he wrote about eating babies, so it's kind of part of the genre of satires to get a little outrageous so that you're confronting these ideas in a really ridiculous way so that you're able to see how ridiculous some of society's behaviors are, and it makes you want to change them. So it's meant to be weird. Just go into it with that. I ended up giving it 4 stars, even though Buck is kind of unlikable narrator. I don't know that he's supposed to be a wildly likable narrator. I think that's part of his journey, is you kind of start out liking him and he becomes this awful guy, and he's slightly more redeemed at the end, but I don't think you're supposed to love him. I don't think that's the point of the story. But the actual story itself is really well written. I liked the writing. I think it's a debut novel, I believe. So for a debut, it was pretty strong. And I will say the narration in the audiobook is really good. I got through it in 1 day. So it's definitely not a huge time commitment. If you're into the idea of trying it, you can at least know that you can get through a decent chunk in a day. And if you don't like it, you could just go from there. And the last 2 books that I read in March were graphic novels. So not hugely long books because, like I said, I wasn't into reading too much in March. I wanted to be, but I just wasn't. And the first one I got to was Daughters of Ys by M.T. Anderson. This graphic novel is based on a Breton folk tale that follows the story of Queen Malgaven, who appears out of nowhere to this young knight in battle, and she says, I know you're going to be king, and I can make your city fortified against the sea. You can be allies with it. I can make you strong. And he ends up marrying her, and they have 2 daughters, Rosin and Dahut. Rosin just wants to be free in nature. She's not into the politics and the craftiness of court life. And Dahut is not so much at first, but when they lose their mother, she does get angry, and she gets angry at her sister for abandoning her, is how she perceives it. And so she makes these awful choices because her father asks her to. He asks her to keep doing what is necessary to keep their kingdom safe as per the magical sacrifices their mother used to make. So she agrees and is kind of compromised morally as a character because of it. I really enjoyed the concept of this story, and the artwork was really cool, kind of spooky. It would have been a good autumn read, but I think I gave it maybe like a 4 or maybe a 3. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember wanting more of the actual folktale story. There's details that are alluded to through some of the images that don't have dialogue or anything to explain it, and I wish I had more of the actual descriptive nature of an actual folktale so that I could understand the magic and what was happening and why things were happening. And somebody comes to collect on Dahut's deal when she fails to fulfill it, and you don't really get an explanation on who that person is and why they're so powerful. So there was answers I wanted that I just didn't get in the graphic novel format, but it was still a really cool story. And the last book I finished in March was The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. This follows a girl named Frances whose dream is to become a world-renowned dressmaker. She wants to be a world-famous fashion designer. In comes Prince Sebastian, aka Lady Crystalia. Sebastian is a young prince, and by day, he's very much trying to fulfill his royal duties and the life that he thinks his parents expect him to lead, but by night, he dresses up in the wonderful gowns that Frances makes him and hits the town as Lady Crystalia, and he just wows people with his beauty and his style, and it kind of helps get Frances's name out there as well. But as things go farther for the both of them, as they progress through their relationship, Frances starts to feel trapped by their friendship, not because she doesn't want to help Sebastian, but because she realizes that by being Lady Crystalia's designer and the fact that Sebastian keeps that part of his life a complete secret, it's under lock and key, Frances realizes she can't actually take credit as the designer because they know that she is the prince's royal tailor. And if she's seen as Lady Crystalia's tailor and the prince's tailor, somebody will eventually put it together. It's a really beautiful story about sort of how far you'll go to protect your friend and how far you'll compromise your own dreams in that quest, and sort of being brave enough to embrace the time when you need to say no to a relationship to do what's best for you, even though you want to continue to be there to help that person, to help them grow and feel loved and respected and grounded. It was a really cute story. I think this kind of graphic novel is also really important in terms of representation. Sebastian is a boy who wears dresses. He doesn't express sort of any disinterest in being romantic with females or anyone else. He doesn't really seem to have that as an interest. He views relationships more as something he's meant to be doing as the heir to the throne and not so much as something he wants to be doing. That is until he finds the right person. And Frances isn't really thinking about relationships either. She's just thinking about her dreams. So it kind of helps them both grow, but it's so important to have a relationship like this represented because Frances accepts Sebastian right away for who he is, a boy that wears dresses. That's it. She doesn't need any explanation about why. She doesn't have any questions. She doesn't need to probe. She doesn't think it's weird. She just accepts him 100% as he is. And I think that is what makes this story so beautiful. Their friendship is both so innocent and complex that it's a really well-rounded story, even though it's really not that long. I think I finished it in an hour. I think I gave this one 4 stars as well. I tend to give graphic novels 4 stars because I will always love the detail and world building that can happen in a full-length novel. Very rarely does a graphic novel satisfy all of those boxes for me, but this one was really close. And like I said, I think the representation of their friendship and his identity as a boy that likes to wear dresses is incredibly important and really well done. But that is it for my March wrap up. Like I said, it's a short one because I didn't read that much in March. I am hoping to read more in April, but no promises. I certainly have been buying a lot more books. So definitely, if you want to keep up with me and all of my bookish adventures, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button. And I highly recommend that you ring the little bell so that you don't miss a beat. Next week's video is going to be a major haul of all the books that I have been buying because I have been doing that, if nothing else. So I thought I'd share them all with you guys. So definitely ring the bell so that you don't miss that one. I will see you guys next week. I post videos every Friday. Bye!